were very many times that I laid next to my son's mom, and the thoughts that I had were more about not knowing what was going to happen next. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's really, it's hard to put into words, having that sense of responsibility and having no idea how you were going to be the man that you said you were. I wasn't a drug dealer no more. I was trying to work. I was 2 months home from prison. And she's pregnant, and now she's pregnant with twins. So there's no way we're getting rid of twins. There's no way. That's done. That's over. And there's also no way that I can leave. She got twins. But we're not really getting along. I've told her that I don't really want kids. And she has decided on her own to keep them. But I'm still in the house. We're still in a relationship. So where does that leave me now? I'm still supposed to be a provider. We're still supposed to be in love, like, but that was bleak, bro. That was bleak. Mm-hmm. And yet, and still, I think that the reason why I didn't want to have kids was less about our thing, but more about not having resources. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to do this. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. How am I going to provide the life that your dad wants for you? When we were dating, you looked at me with a certain sort of reverence, and like you were proud of me. You admired me. I work at a coffee shop right now. I got an 18-year-old manager. I'm 31 years old. I can't make lattes. I work at a fucking coffee. I don't know how to make lattes. She keeps yelling at me. How is that same person going to be the father of 2 young kids and your husband or boyfriend? I felt way in over my head, but I did not feel like I could say that. I did not feel like I could tell you that's why I don't want this. I had already felt like me saying I didn't want it was so much more of a disappointment than anything. This is before I knew we was having twins. Like, you're pregnant first, right? Mm-hmm. And then you go in sonograms or whatever. 4 months in, you find out, hey, there's 2 of them in there. So that disappointment has set in from 2 months since the pregnancy test, that you kind of feel alone in this. I wish there was more that I would have known about who to call, who could help her, because I did not know how to help her. The doctors obviously was on her side, but you go in there for a minute and you leave, and that's it. And now you're back on your own. So I'm sitting here with Amina Woods. Amina Woods was on a panel at her sister Zakiyah Woods' seminar called Dads Get Sad. And she is, in herself, a registered doula. Registered doula?
Doula, yes. Doula. I'm a doula.
Right?
Yes.
What is that? Because it sounds like some Haitian oatmeal or something. I don't know what that is. What is that?
Haitian oatmeal?
I don't know, but it's like, I've heard this on this podcast. My co-host says doula all the time.
Okay.
But that wasn't something that was like readily available.
Right. I actually just learned that word through my sister. I believe she trained as a doula back in 2018 with Ancient Song Doula. Shout out to them. They're Brooklyn based. And even when she did it, I wasn't sure what it was, right? But I soon learned that a doula is actually a trained professional, non-clinical though, right? So we're not doctors or nurses, right? We're not, we don't do the clinical work of pregnancy, but we're trained professionals who provide emotional support, resource support, and physical support for the birthing person and their family. And I just want to clarify because I use the term birthing person and mother interchangeably. Some people may be aware that not every person who gives birth identifies as a mother.
Yeah.
Not everybody who gives birth identifies as a woman. So I just use those terms
That's
interchangeably,
fine. Yeah,
just to
fine.
be as inclusive as possible. But yeah, we don't do the clinical work, but we work in conjunction with doulas and midwives, and we're a part of your care team, your birthing care team, whether you're giving birth in the hospital or if you're giving birth at home or if you're giving birth in a birthing center.
At what point do you start working with a doula?
I recommend working with a doula as soon as you know that you are pregnant, as soon as you know that you're planning to have a baby, right? Because,
Really?
yeah. So there are different types of doulas. Most people don't know what a doula is, and then they definitely don't know that there are different types of doulas. But there are doulas who assist with fertility planning. So there are fertility doulas. So if you're thinking that you want to plan for a family, you can have a doula to support you in walking through that fertility journey. If you're getting IVF procedures, a fertility doula can walk with you through that process.
Now, what does this do to help the birthing person?
It does a lot. When
I say that, it's like, obviously you offer resources and support, but what I've heard is that when a person is pregnant, because I'll follow your lead on that, when a person is pregnant, there's a lot of emotional things that's happening.
Oh, yeah.
There's literally psychological changes that are happening that they don't know and can't even express to their partner, their support system, the people around them. They can't literally figure it out because it's happening every day.
They're in the weeds of it.
It's
hard to see through the weeds.
Exactly.
Right? It's too thick.
So what does having a doula do to help that?
Yeah, you're right about the emotional stress, and that's really the reason. That's what led me to becoming a doula. I was practicing as a psychotherapist during the pandemic, and I started noticing that all of my clients were women, women of color, and specifically Black women, and they were in different stages of their perinatal or maternal journey. Some of them were really young, new career educators or nurses, and then there were some who were, maybe their youngest is 3-4 years old, and experiencing so many different complex feelings based on their journey in motherhood in that moment. So I became a doula to inform my practice as a psychotherapist, because even as a psychotherapist, right, I felt that I was ill-equipped and not adequately trained to meet the very unique and individualized needs of the birthing person, right? Working with someone who is single, no children, not pregnant is totally different than working with an individual who's pregnant. Someone who's pregnant, who may have just started their career, having regrets, some of the same feelings that you're expressing to me now. I've had clients who were dealing with that in our treatment with therapy, and I felt so ill-equipped and trained. And so I just started doing a Google search, looking for some info on maternal mental health first aid. Around about that time, our former mayor's wife had this campaign around mental health, right? And there was adolescent mental health first aid trainings within the community. There was just generalized mental health first aid training. I couldn't find anything specific to the needs of the pregnant person. But what came up for me, in addition to some resources through Postpartum Support International, was information about doulas and doula training. And so my approach to doula work is specifically focused on the mental health, the mental well-being of not just the mother, but of the family unit.
No way.
Yeah, yes way.
How does having a doula help the other people in the family unit?
So So while our role is to hold the mother, right? I love holding the babies, but my role is to hold the mother. So whatever it is that that mom needs, that's my role. And that will also include bringing in her support system so that I, as her doula, can have a team of her village, make sure that she gets the best support possible, both mentally and physically. So in my role in working with parents, working with mothers, what I do is, if she has family support around, if I know that her mother is around, if I know that her husband is around, we all plan together to ensure that whatever mother needs during her pregnancy, during her labor and delivery and postpartum, she has all hands or as many hands on deck as possible, in addition to me as a doula. So we do some birth planning with mother and with the family. And birth planning is basically just discussing what your preferences are for your pregnancy and for your birth. And so I like to take a village approach, right? Because once mom is in that labor and delivery space, it will get to a point where she shouldn't be making any decisions, right? She shouldn't be bothered with anything but just getting to work, going through that labor. And so in addition to myself, her family members can be her advocates. So I work with the families to teach them how to be her support and teach them how to be her advocates when she's giving birth.
I'm not gonna lie to you. The idea of what you're saying to me just sounds so dope, and it sounds so soothing, especially for the mom.
Yeah.
But that's where I draw. There's a little asterisk there.
Okay.
And the reason I put an asterisk there, and you can tell me to get over it. This is what they tell me all the time. They're like, bro, it's not about you. They say that all the time.
Well, you'll never hear me say get over it.
But the not about you part. When I go to the doctor with her and they're doing the ultrasounds, I may ask questions. And it's like they hear me ask the questions, they talk to the mom. It just feels very much like, okay, but this is about her. Right, and she's who my patient is, and you're over here. Is that also how a doula? So the reason I ask that is when you're saying like, I work with the family. If I'm already sensitive, because first of all, I'm a Pisces.
Me too. When's your birthday?
You? February 25th.
I'm March 6th. I'm a March.
Oh, so you're March.
Pisces.
You're March.
Yes,
so we're slightly different, but you understand the sensitivity.
Yes. I'm definitely an empath.
And super empathic.
Hence the work that I do.
Right. And right, exactly. It could be very easy for me to, when you come in and you're like, okay, Dad, now you do this. Like, what is your approach to dealing with, say, the men? The reason I'm having this whole thing, we're doing a show all week with different segments. I'm really trying to get the men to understand the emotions of women and what's happening in their body, what's happening during the whole process of pregnancy and afterwards. And I'm going to get to that word perinatal that you mentioned after this question. But I'm also trying to get people to understand what happens with men. And I don't think anybody really focuses on that. I don't really feel anybody really understands that. He kind of feels lost in all of this. And so how does your work actually make him feel like more part of the situation?
I would like to believe so. So for the mothers that I've worked with who's had their husbands or their partners available during their pregnancy, one of the most reoccurring themes that comes up in our conversations when we first meet is how they want their husbands to be a part of that journey. So my approach in my work is not just to show up on the day of birth, right? What I do is I begin to develop a relationship with my clients and their partners well before the due date, depending on how soon or how late they reach out, right? So like I said, you can reach out to a doula as soon as you know that you're pregnant, as soon as that you know that you will almost be pregnant, and begin that journey. So I meet with them for prenatal visits. I'm all up in their homes sometimes, right? Eating up their foods. They feed me very well. But in that first conversation, we start talking about birth preferences. And I do a lot of listening, especially if this is not their first trip around the rodeo, if they've had a birth experience before. I listened to the stories about their previous birth, and oftentimes what I hear is that their husband or their partner was distant, right? Was off in the corner somewhere.
Exactly.
Maybe there was like a crisis happening and it got really chaotic, but they noticed that their husband was there, and their goal in our new experience, what they always ask is, help me to help him be a part of the journey.
That's amazing.
Right? I want him to be close by. I want to know that he's there for me. Help me bring him a part of the journey, because when we did this before, he felt so isolated and so removed from it, right? So we start having that conversation from jump. Sometimes the dads are a part of our prenatal appointments. Sometimes they're not, because they're out, chasing a chicken. But on the day of labor and delivery, we already have had a rundown of what to expect, because our entire prenatal journey was about planning for your birth preferences, what your options are, and bringing dad in on the conversation so that he's aware of what decisions mom has made so that he can best advocate for her.
Do you think that there's any data regarding the use of a doula and people that stay together versus the use of the non-use and people that break apart? You know what I mean? Like, does it actually help that?
I hadn't thought about that, but that's actually a good research idea that I might have to steal from you. Right? That's a good idea. The research on doulas that are out there basically explains how beneficial having a doula is. So I was speaking with your partner earlier, starting to explain to him the crisis of Black maternal mortality that's out there. I don't know if you're aware. Okay. So you know that song Beyonce has, she says, America has a problem. America has a problem. Right now, America is one of the leading nations with the leading developed nations with some of the highest maternal mortality and morbidity rates, right? And that's just generally speaking. So it's not a crisis because of Black and white. And somebody mentioned it was COVID. No, it wasn't because of COVID. This crisis has been in existence for decades and generations. It's just that there was a report that came out in around 2018, just before COVID, that highlighted this as a crisis. Stuff that we already knew, people were beginning to become aware of it. COVID only illuminated it even more, just like COVID did so many of our disparities. But in the U.S., while there's a maternal mental health crisis, maternal mortality crisis, and the U.S. is leading, Black women are disproportionately affected, especially in New York City. Nationally, Black women are 3 times as likely to die in childbirth compared to white women. In New York City, however, Black women are 9 times as likely to die in childbirth. Well, the long story short is systemic racism, right? Systemic racism, a censoring of hospital births, and not that I'm anti-hospital at all. Hospitals, they serve a purpose, right? The hospital system has advanced technology that can help detect any problems to help save births, and they're useful for surgery in case there's like a rapid need to remove the baby because of crisis. Maybe the mom's health is at risk or the child's health is at risk. But oftentimes what's happening in the hospitals is the hospitals are using interventions that are mostly unnecessary. 80% of the maternal losses are preventable. 20% of them are due to mental health also, by the way. Okay. But 80% of those losses were due to preventable causes. I'll give you an example. Somebody from our own community, Christine Fields. I don't know if you're aware, Christine Fields was killed at Woodhull Hospital in November of 2023, just recently. Oh my goodness. My understanding of the story is that she went in And then she had a healthy pregnancy. And then for some strange reason, the hospitals found that it was necessary for her to have a C-section. There was a rupture that was caused during the surgery. And apparently the doctor who killed her didn't document it, didn't share the information to her recovery team. And unfortunately, she bled out and she lost her life.
In the hospital?
In the hospital, in Woodhull Hospital.
Because they had closed her up and
because of negligence, total negligence.
She just was still bleeding inside.
Total negligence. Woodhull Hospital has a
I would
history.
Never go to Wood. I have been in the ambulance and be like, yo, don't take me there. Take me to Wyckoff.
Yeah.
I have literally been in that ambulance and said that, but to people out here that don't know our area, I'm pretty sure that this happens in a lot of places where...
Yeah, so the issue of Black maternal mortality is not exclusive to certain socioeconomic statuses. The most famous story that many of us have heard is the story of Serena Williams, who would have lost her life if she wasn't as assertive and demanding in the way that she had to eventually become, because she wasn't being heard. And that's the complaint that I see as a doula and that I hear from my clients as a doula, is that they feel dismissed, they are unheard, their complaints are brushed under the rug.
Yep,
and oftentimes their doctors don't even look at them. They're in the doctor's office for about 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes during their prenatal appointments. And some doctors won't even really make eye contact. And so all of that, culminated with, insurance issues, access to proper health care, not having adequate access to medical care will cause complications that could have been avoided if we didn't have these discriminatory healthcare practices that we do.
Now, what does having a doula do to circumvent that or to help with that issue?
So as a doula, we play a really, really important role in trying to buffer some of those nuances, some of the things that come up that would possibly cause a mother to lose her life in birth. And it's simply done by giving information, giving knowledge, giving resources, right? Because that's empowerment. So if I can give a mom and dad information about what exams are necessary and what exams are optional, that helps minimize certain risks, right? So for example, I had a client who she was a couple of weeks shy of her due date, and the doctor felt like she needed to start this process moving along. So there's this intervention called a cervical sweep, where they'll insert inside of her body and begin to strip away the membranes to begin to progress the labor. But every time you enter the vaginal canal, every time you enter the vagina, you're increasing the chances of infection in the uterus, right? So her doctor was saying, we're going to do this every week. So by me letting her know, you don't need to do that, it's really unnecessary, and here are the risks to this. And so she felt so empowered that by the next doctor's appointment, she kept all of her clothes on. Her doctor walked in and saw her and said, oh, I guess we're not doing the vaginal exam today. She said, nope, we're not. Her doctor says, well, okay, and just documented it, right? Simple as that. Just providing information, providing resource, providing knowledge, letting them know what their rights as a patient is. Right. They have a lot of rights that oftentimes the hospitals, for their reasons, they don't do a very good job at explaining what their rights and their options are.
Well, it's because they have people coming in and now it's like an assembly line.
Yeah.
It's really an assembly line thing.
And they work from their own agenda, right? So they have compliance regulations. They have people that they have to answer to. They have an approach. And so sometimes in order to fulfill their requirements, what it seems like to me is that information is withheld. Information isn't readily shared. Yeah.
We use the word perinatal. I've heard this word thrown around.
Okay.
What I'm going to ask is two-part question. What is perinatal? Maybe 3-part. How long does it last? And what are the emotional shifts within the mother? Damn, 4 parts. And do men have emotional shifts, or the support system, the support person, whether it's a man, whether it's a woman, whether it's the mother, the grandmother, or whatever it may be, do they experience emotional shifts in the perinatal process? So what is perinatal?
Okay.
How long does it last? And how does it affect either partners in the situation?
Yeah. So I use the term perinatal as opposed to like when people are referring to the postpartum period. But the perinatal period is the period of pregnancy, labor and childbirth, and the postpartum period. So it encompasses the entire journey of pregnancy, labor, and postpartum.
Okay, so that's what, 2 years, something like that?
Well, when you consider the postpartum period, that actually lasts up to a year. Essentially the perinatal period will be about a 2-year period at least.
Okay. And what are the emotions that, say, a birthing person may... When I was in the seminar with you, let me give you a little thing. I took notes. I was in there loving what y'all was talking about. I thought I was just going to, and I was like, oh man.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
Perinatal symptoms is what we spoke about. You mentioned depression.
Those were the mental health.
Okay, the mental health
symptoms,
issue.
right? But you know, the perinatal journey, the parenthood journey, right? Because you're giving birth to become a parent. It's an emotional roller coaster because you're starting probably one of the most transformative periods of your life. And so there's tons of shifts. Just in thinking about my experience, I couldn't stand my son's father when I was pregnant.
What?
I couldn't stand him.
How long? Does he know?
Yeah, of course he knows. He felt it.
He felt it.
I was biting. He felt it, and he might still hold it against me till this day. But I was an emotional wreck, just quite naturally, because pregnancy, just physically, is an emotional toll on the woman's body, because literally every cell of her body is in use for the sustainability of this new life, right? So it affects your skin, our hair, our muscles, everything is affected. Our teeth, you have to go to the dentist to make sure that your calcium isn't lacking. Some people lose teeth as a result of pregnancy. But it's an emotional roller coaster, particularly for individuals who may find themselves in an unexpected predicament, right? Now having to be responsible for another human being. So it will cause people to fall into depression, excessive anxiety. Some people lose sleep, right? So symptoms of depression and anxiety will be trouble with sleep. So if someone is pregnant and their partner is also experiencing this journey, and they're obsessively worrying about what's to come next, some people lose sleep over this, for sure. Right? And one thing about perinatal mental health, because that's an area that I specialize in, you know, oftentimes we underestimate how necessary sleep is, because perinatal psychosis is a thing, is a disorder among the other mental health diagnoses. But, you know, if you're not sleeping, it's no wonder you might start seeing things and hearing things that aren't real, right?
What are you saying? That you might see me or hear something from me and you taking it a different way because you're pregnant?
Yeah, because those emotions are high. And when you're
kids really kill the vibe. They really kill the vibe. They're really vibe killers.
I hope my son doesn't watch this. He will give me the parental look of disappointment. Like, what do you mean by that, Mom? But yeah, they kind of do, right? Because imagine you're out just chilling, you know, hanging out, doing you, and then boom, you get this news that kind of shuts down everything for you. The life that you knew before is over.
But
it's
even
totally
during the
different.
process of being pregnant, it's changing the way that you are.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This change, oftentimes, and I really went outside and I started doing interviews with people on the street. A lot of people break up during pregnancy and right after pregnancy.
Yeah.
Does having a doula help that? Like, like we've asked that before, and the reason I keep asking that, right, is because I want to give support to people.
Yeah.
I don't think men understand the changes. I think that we take it personally. Like you just said, you hated him. If y'all love wasn't like,
well, maybe I didn't hate him, but he just kind of made me sick.
Right. Just imagine that. I have to live there with this. People say, well, get over it. She's pregnant. Get over it. Yo, she doesn't like me the same anymore.
Right.
She doesn't. Like,
and you're a human being with human feelings.
Bro, you don't understand. And then when you come around, she's the nicest person in the world.
Yeah.
When the grandmother comes around, she's a nice person in the world. They're all touching the belly and stuff. And obviously there's different types of pregnancies, so everybody isn't the same. But does having a doula kind of help a woman work through those emotions or mental health issues?
Well, it would depend on your doula, right? Not every doula is trained to understand perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. I know the network that I'm in, many of us are trained, have some specialized training in that. So if you have a doula who's familiar with the mental health component, then yeah, definitely. But in general, the role of the doula is to support the emotional health of the mother. So what we do is we help to alleviate any anxieties that she might be feeling about what's going on with her body or news that she received from her doctor. Doctors tend to give news in a very like crisis-based way that scares the bejesus out of all of my clients. And so when they call me and I can sort of calm them down and we go through some breath work, some breathing exercises, that helps. That helps them see things in perspective, and that helps them calm their nervous system, which is really important.
It's super
because
important.
The baby is feeling
Super
that.
important.
If mom is stressed, if mom is anxious, baby is anxious.
Right.
If mom is feeling depressed, baby is feeling depressed too. And that will impact that can possibly impact the outcome of your labor and delivery, because the baby's not going to come out if he feels like it's unsafe.
Right.
He's not going to want to come out
Like,
there.
I'm staying here.
Yeah.
Why you've been bugging out.
It sounds stressful out there.
There's some questions that somebody had in the chat before I move on. How long does it take for your body? Well, before I say that, Brandon says that's why the fathers need to be there, even in the hospital rooms. I will say this. I asked a lot of questions when she was in the hospital. When she needed something and it wasn't happening fast enough, I was like, I'll be right back.
Good.
I'm going to the nurse's station. Hey, she asked for this. They said they was going to bring it.
Yeah.
It hasn't come yet. Like, it's kind of weird. Stressing me out.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, Dad. All right.
Good.
And they go, do it. And I just continuously do that. I made a relationship with the nurses so that they, like, when she was there, I was there. I don't think I left. So she slept there. I slept there,
You were fulfilling your role as her partner and doula too.
Yeah, right. So somebody in the chat says, how long does it take for your body to regulate itself after birth? My son is 3 and I still don't feel like myself.
Yeah, that's a pretty common issue, and it depends on the person. Everybody's snapback ability is different. I would say that it's really important in your recovery, in your birthing recovery, to pay attention to your nutrition, to be mindful of managing your mental stress, your physical stress. All of that plays a role in how your recovery progresses. But yeah, it's not uncommon for this individual, like others, to feel like 3 years later still dealing with what could be untreated postpartum depression.
Well, one of our guests here, Kasha, said that postpartum can last up to 6 years, and not necessarily postpartum, but the gray matter or white matter, something she was talking about with the cells and the way the body changes and the way your brain changes, it can last up to like 6 years after the pregnancy.
Well, any depression that goes untreated will be long lasting, right? So if the postpartum depression went untreated, chances are now it just turns into another type of depression. Postpartum only indicates when postpartum depression or any other postpartum mood and anxiety disorder only indicates when the mood and anxiety issue started, right? But once you kind of leave that postpartum area when the baby is a little bit older and you're on your way to recovery and it's untreated, now you're looking at some other form of clinical depression or clinical diagnosis.
How do people get help for postpartum?
Postpartum mental health,
or depression, right?
Talk to somebody. Tell somebody. First,
what if you don't
foremost,
realize that you're going through it?
Well, that would be the role that doulas play as well, right? Because if you don't know, if you can't heal what you're not able to reveal, right? And so knowledge is everything. So just having the knowledge and knowing the signs and the symptoms to look out for can help the individual and their family members around them know what's happening with that mother.
So doulas actually help with postpartum issues too, and can help the mother get through that as well.
Yes, by directing them to resources that can support them.
Absolutely, but
right?
just because if you're going through it after the birth, and I just think that you're just this cold, I was going to use the you're just different.
Yeah.
And it's dark. And it feels like responsibility, but there's no love. Who are we now? Do you even want me here? You being able to say, Dad, I'm sensing a little maybe postpartum, manage things that might need to be treated. You guys might need to get a therapist. You might need to help her in this way. Or saying that actually to her, because a lot of times mothers feel like, I don't know if I like this baby. I don't know if I like myself anymore. I feel I don't. My friends are doing this and I'm not invited. You'll be able to see all of these things and have a conversation with her.
Absolutely. And that's one of the beautiful things about having a doula is what we call a continuity of care. So your midwife or your OB will see you for your prenatals, see you for your follow-up postpartum. But from birth to your first postpartum visit, outpatient, is usually 6 weeks, right? So in that 6 weeks, myself as a doula, I'm there. I've built a relationship with the mother before pregnancy and before the birth. And then I also have some postpartum visits that I make, about 3 to 4 postpartum visits. And many of them happen before her first 6-week follow-up. So because of our familiarity, we've developed a relationship. I'm able to pick up some of those differences, like you said, right? And in the program that I see clients from, which is New York City's community, a citywide doula initiative, we also screen. We have some screening tools where we ask a series of questions to the mom to assess where she is with any symptoms of depression, where she is with symptoms of anxiety. And if we notice that those numbers look like she's dealing with something, or if in conversation it seems like mom is not doing so well, she's having a hard time attaching and bonding with the baby, we can help her get access to resources.
Do mothers lie about how they're feeling? Because me, as a father, as a man, if you ask me how I'm doing, I'm going to be like, good. I'm just going to say good. I don't want you to think there's something wrong with me. You know what I mean? Do mothers often try to do that because they don't want people to think they're not doing like their other people that they knew?
Absolutely. Because especially Black mothers, right? Because Black mothers tend to have a target on our backs. And so what I found in conversations with other mothers is many mothers have suffered in silence with postpartum depression and other postpartum mental health issues out of fear and anxiety that if I say something to my doctor, if I tell my doctor that, I feel like I want to run away from my baby and never come back. I feel like I want to hurt my baby and harm my baby. So many of our mothers are fearful that ACS or children's services will get involved. So they hold it in, they keep it to themselves because, we're socialized that we're super women, super men. And so it goes untreated in that way. Yeah. And then there's also the part where, because of our relationship to the topic of mental health as a community, and as a nation in general, I don't think we've gotten to a place where many people can say, yeah, I think I'm dealing with depression. It's not until you may have come out of that depression or come through that depression, or maybe have a therapist tell you that you're depressed, that they even know that's
it's like a new word.
It is a new word.
It's trauma. These words, all of these words that we're using right now, therapy is big in that pile of words.
Yeah.
Because the older generation, I'm gonna tell you right now, if you say therapy to them, they're gonna think you're trying to play with them.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not right. They going into some other place with the word therapy.
Yeah.
So admitting, hey, I might need help. That's a big step.
It is, but it's a necessary step. And it's a courageous step to say that I don't have it all together. I'm just a human being having this really human experience. I'm hurting. That's really courageous to do. And I commend everyone who's ever able to say, listen, I'm having a tough time. I don't know how to get through this. I just need somebody to talk to.
I'm gonna tell you right now. I keep saying I'm gonna tell you right now, but I'm talking about my personal experience, right? I was speaking to I want to say a therapist. Her name is Brittany. She's from Chicago, and I might have a call in on this episode. I'm not sure. She said that there are resources for parents out there, but we rather buy Jordans than pay for that. But I was like, yeah, but when we're pregnant, that's a lot of times, especially with black families or with the people in my community, the people that I know, they were unplanned. The pregnancies were unplanned. We didn't say, hey, let's have a baby and work on it. We didn't do that. We didn't, look for information on what to do or whatever. It just happened, and we just roll with the punches, right?
Yeah.
So now that means I'm not financially ready for this. Money be tight. I'm worried. You see what I said? I was worried. I didn't know how I was going to do it. When the idea of doula comes up, it sounds as if it's something I can't afford. It sounds like a luxury.
Yeah.
Is that the deal, or are you guys more readily available than people think?
So, unfortunately, the practice of getting a doula or accessing a doula has become a luxury in our country, where generations ago, doulas and midwives worked hand in hand. Midwives birthed our nation, by the way, right? Midwives have been giving birth to babies before the hospitals were started. So doulas and midwives have always been around. But then when the hospitals sort of centered themselves, as the experts in medicine, and created this narrative that midwives were, unprofessional, poorly trained, that took away our resources, because now the hospital and their practices were the center of how we give birth, right? And so now the individuals who most typically can afford doula services are ones with some level of affluence, some level of discretionary spending, right? I'm in the process of developing my doula business, and I'm looking up my competitors, and his doula services are like $4,000, right? Luckily, though, there are some health insurances that offer supplemental family planning insurances. So I encourage people to look through their insurance benefits at their job to see if doula services can be covered through their insurance.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay, go ahead.
Because otherwise, if you're not in a predicament to pay $4,000 for a doula, right, you may not be able to access a doula, depending on where you live in the country. Here in New York City, we have our citywide doula initiative that offers free doula services if you are Medicaid eligible and if you live in certain zip codes across all 5 boroughs. So there's that. Also, as of January 1st, Medicaid, New York State Medicaid, will be providing reimbursement for doula services.
So you could get that money back?
You can get it back. But I know for me, I'm a little worried because the challenge I know for many of our community members is putting up that money up front in order to get reimbursed. Right. So I try to recommend that people add doula services to their baby shower lists, right? That's an idea.
Yo, that's fire.
Have the community, yes.
That's a great idea.
have your family in your village. You know how many
packs of diapers? Thanks for the diapers.
The diapers are necessary for sure.
Thanks for the little thing you put the diapers in. I don't use it. And I hate picking them up as a garbage thing. The little thing that you put the diapers in and it comes out like a little cat pack. the diaper genie, garbage can. I hate that thing.
Why?
It's just
it holds the smell together. It does.
But having that bread towards like you got almost like a go fund this baby.
Yep.
Go fund a doula. Go fund D.
Yes. So I recommend people do that, especially if for those who may get the birth doula services, because like I said, there's different doulas. There's fertility doulas, there's birth doulas, there's also grief and loss doulas for anyone who not only have lost a child in childbirth, but for like death, if you're grieving the loss of a loved one. But you can also work with a doula if you've suffered a miscarriage or stillbirth. And then there's a postpartum doula. I know in the CDI program, postpartum doulas aren't covered, even though we do about like 4 postpartum visits. But have a fundraiser, put that on your baby shower registry and do it that way.
I really believe this is a thing that could work.
It does work.
The
research shows
it does.
There is research out there that shows that while having a doula doesn't solve the problem of maternal mortality and morbidity, and I don't know if you're familiar with the term morbidity, right? So oftentimes what happens is if a person doesn't lose their life in childbirth, if there were some severe complications during the pregnancy and childbirth process, oftentimes mothers end up dealing with lifelong health complications that stemmed from their pregnancy.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So this is really a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
Man, I've had this argument before I really decided to really want to help change in this situation or help educate in this situation or even educate myself, where I was like, what, women, y'all all do it. Y'all all have babies. Like, why are you acting like such a big deal? And they're like, you don't understand how much of a thing this is, because you look at a woman, then you look at baby, and you're like, that was it.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot that goes into that.
There's a lot physically, emotionally, and even spiritually, right? So you got to think about it. The woman is this portal bringing life in from the other side, and quite literally, her body, her consciousness, she's going. Especially if she's doing it naturally, she's literally going in and out of consciousness. In my psychoanalytical world, we call it dissociation, right? Where in order to protect the mother and what she's feeling, the mind will detach, or some will say the spirit will temporarily detach just to be protective of the mind and the body. And then just when it's time for her to push and deliver, reconnection happens so that mom can then be aware and conscious enough to push. There's so much that goes into childbirth. It's fascinating.
That's fucking crazy.
It's fascinating. It's so scientific. It's so sci-fi.
If you were to have, I'm going to ask you for 2 statements.
Okay.
Excuse me. If you had some words that you wanted to say for mothers that were going to plan birth or are expecting right now, what would they be?
If I had words,
Yeah.
first one would be to breathe, take a couple of deep breaths. And secondly, I would say if you've never had a therapist or had therapy, I think this would be a really good time to start meeting with the therapist, to have an outlet, so that you can release some of those thoughts, you can release some of those feelings, and you can be in a space of like total self-care. I know oftentimes as women, sometimes we often feel guilty about some of the thoughts that we have, particularly around our pregnancies. And I think working with someone in therapy can help normalize some of those feelings. I remember saying during the panel that some of the key indicators or the basis of anxiety and depression stems around guilt and shame. And pregnancy has a tendency to bring that up. And pregnancy also has a tendency of bringing to the surface some trauma. If a mother has experienced childhood trauma, or any form of trauma, it's very interesting how pregnancy and childbirth can bring some of that to the surface, even when the mother probably had no idea or no memory of any traumatic experience, right? If she may have been sexually abused as a child, she may not have a memory of it, but her body does. And her body will send signs and signals, and her mind will send signs and signals that could be connected to her childhood trauma. So I would say start therapy as soon as possible if you know that you're planning to become pregnant, or if you just found out that you had a baby, that you're going to have a baby.
Another, and probably the last statement I'll ask, is to the support system. If you had words to the support system, the father, the grandmother, the best friend, whoever it may be, that's the person that's there for this birthing person, what words would you say to them?
I would say for especially the father, I would say that it's important for the support system to get support too, to get support in learning how to advocate for the mother, and also some support for their own emotional and mental well-being. Because it's not just the mother who's dealing with this, right? Whatever, just by witnessing the mother's grief or stress is contagious. It's going to affect everyone in the household. If mom isn't well, if the women aren't well in the community isn't doing well, right? So I would say for her support network, they need to find support too. Support groups for dads, therapy for dads as well, and just being in community with one another, and just being able to experience all of the feelings together, so that everyone can know that they're not alone. Mom is feeling away. She's not alone, because you're feeling scared and worried and anxious as well. And there's healing in knowing that, you know, I'm not alone in this, right? I'm not just this extraterrestrial being that's going through this unheard of, you know, experience. So I think that there's definitely healing in community. So doing what's necessary to stay in community, I think is what's necessary for her support person.
I love that advice. I definitely felt like it was me. I don't think that fathers understand it. Like, and I think you felt like that too. I think the fathers out there that's listening to this right now, I think you felt that way too. Like, yeah, I thought she didn't like me. She was acting that way towards me. It wasn't about her. It was about our relationship. She changed towards me. And I don't think that we realized that relationship could have been saved. That child could have had a 2-parent home. The resentment that you feel in your heart is towards a person that wasn't really themselves. The reason that you and her are still beefing is because you're holding on to emotions that you're blaming her for a person that that's not even her. She was somebody else. And now she's reacting to you because of who you became based off of how you felt about that other person that wasn't even her.
Yeah, it's just like
It's like
becoming
nuts.
a whole cyclone.
I had to actually come to a realization at some point that, oh shit, I still don't like you because of what happened 10 years ago.
Yeah, it hurt.
15 years ago. Holy shit, I'm bugging. And so I had to have that conversation with her. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Where can people find you? Where can people, for one, where can men find those support systems? Like, is it just a Google thing? Like, is it?
So I know, Postpartum Support International is one of our leading national organizations dealing with the perinatal population, including dads. So you can go on their website. They offer so many different types of groups, culturally relevant groups, and they have groups for dads. So I'd encourage you to do that. And you can go to Google. New York City has fatherhood initiatives. I would encourage you to go to nyc.gov and just check out the resources that the city offers. But yeah, postpartum support and newyorkcity.gov should be a good starting point.
And what about nationwide? We have people across the country, the world that
Nationwide.
listen to this.
So postpartum support is internationally known.
That initiative is internationally known.
Yes, it's a national organization supporting the needs of the postpartum population.
That's dope. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
As far as where they can find me, so I'm just finding my way through social media, but you can find me. My new social media name is The Office of Amina T. Woods. That's my name, AMINA, the letter T, WOODS. My website, if anybody's interested in getting a free consultation with me for doula services, aminatwoods.com is where you can click the link so that you can schedule a consultation and hopefully add me to be a part of your birth story.
What about people who are thinking, you know what? I might want to be a doula. What's the process? So
you got to be trained. How long
does trainers take?
So my training was a couple weeks. I think it was about 12, maybe 15 weeks. I trained at Mama Glow, which is based in New York City, but they have a national network. They do trainings online. So they offer sliding scale, maybe, don't quote me, but I know there are scholarships that are offered. And you can do, I know I did a payment plan. You can do a payment plan, but I would advise people to shop around. I found Mama Glow because I did a Google search, doula stuff popped up, and then I just started comparing prices. So I would encourage you to do that. I like Mama Glow because there's also a sense of community among the doula, among the doulas in that group. And I just really adore how Latham Thomas, the founder and owner of Mama Glow, how she just takes really good care of the doulas, because as birth workers, it's really tough work. And just being cared for by my doula network has helped given me an example of how to be in community and be in space with my clients. So Mama Glow is where I graduated from. Ancient Song Doula is based here in Brooklyn as well. She's been in existence since 2018. So you can start there on the search for doula training. This
was an amazing interview. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anytime.
We actually have Colin and Brooke Smith, who are also at that seminar, and they'll be here to talk about their experience with pregnancy and pregnancy loss.
Absolutely. Because in addition to the Black maternal mortality and morbidity crisis, there also is Black infant mortality crisis. So I know they'll do very well at sharing about that info.
Yes. You guys already know. I really feel passionate about this right now. I just wanted to help use my platform to get this information out there, for not only mothers to feel like, okay, somebody gets it, but for fathers to feel like somebody gets it, and for couples to look at themselves with some type of renewed energy, like, okay, maybe we should do some research. Maybe we need to make some phone calls. Maybe we need to have certain conversations that we were scared to have, because it's not just us. You know, maybe this might help our community stay together. You know what I mean?
I agree.
If you want to hear the full episode, please go to you ain't got to do www no more. Toro, why didn't you tell me that? You ain't got to use www no more. Did you know that?
I just found out.
Just now?
Yeah, just now.
Well, to each one, teach one. Patreon.com/So Shameless Podcast. If you want to hear the whole episode, I will have Amina's links in this episode. If you want to find her, if you want the information on doula training and postpartum information, all of the links that she spoke about today, I would ask that you just send me that so I can put it in the description of this episode.
Sure
Please reach out to her, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for coming, Amina.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here.
So Shameless.